I think it's tough to glean too much in terms of like mechanics and all of that. I think that gets a little overstated as well. I don't think that's like a night and day kind of difference. I think it's more subtle. But to your point, John, Jalen Hurts did look really good, I thought, for the most part in practice. And what impressed me wasn't necessarily the deep balls he was connecting on and the flashier plays as much as that one specific rep where I thought he hit Jack Stoll in stride in a tight window over the middle of the field, which is an area that Jalen Hurts has not really utilized. And I kind of think that kind of speaks to a comfort level in the offense. And also on those deep balls, not just, if I recall correctly, he was getting those out in decent timing too. He wasn't just holding on to the ball for forever.
McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. It is our pleasure to usher in one of our favorite guests. Always does a great job when he joins us, and he looks down at us because he's big.
Always looking down on us. Always.
Brandon Lee Gowton joins us here on from Bleeding Green Nation. He joins us here on Birds 365. All right, when you get grass time tomorrow, do you do the proper thing and just stand in the back because you can see over everybody anyway? Or do you push your way to the one front and go, yeah, go ahead, try and look over me, guys?
It's a big sideline. I think there's enough room for everybody there.
There's enough room this time of year.
Right. Yeah, when the fans aren't there like they are in training camp. Hey, but it's first come, first serve. So, yeah.
Yeah, box them out. That's what you should do. BLG. Like Shane Steichen boxed out the play calling. How about that? What do you think of? He was doing it last year, so but the Eagles kind of underplayed it when they made the change mid-season. Now they've admitted it. Shane came out and said, "Hey, I'm going to be the play caller," which I think surprised us that they were so overt about it. What was your take on why they did it and why Nick Sirianni allowed Shane Steichen to sort of take the reins there?
It seems like it wouldn't necessarily be in the team's best interest to want to, put Shane Steichen out there in terms of like, hey, if the play calls are really good, then hire this guy. He's the one doing it. But maybe he feels that way. Maybe he wanted that out there. And yeah, to your point, John, obviously we did hear about this last season in terms of Sirianni saying that it was kind of collaborative with him and Steichen calling the plays. And really, if you look at the history of Shane Steichen going back to his Chargers days, the Chargers had one of the highest neutral run rates in terms of like, regardless of what the score was or the situation being up or down, they're running the ball, especially on early downs. And obviously we saw that a lot in the second half last year with the Eagles. So you're kind of seeing that. And there's a complaint in LA that they were doing it too much with Herbert, as a good quarterback. But in any case, it worked for the Eagles last year. And that's kind of interesting for this season because we're all thinking they're going to pass more than they were at the end of last season. But we all saw how that went at the beginning of last season. So it's going to be interesting to see how they balance between those two things, the very heavy pass attack and the very heavy run attack.
Wow. See, I did not know that analytical stat you just gave, that when he was with the Chargers, they were a run-heavy football team. They had some good running backs, so it would make some sense. But so you're suggesting the Eagles becoming more of a run-heavy team last year was as much Steichen's doing as it was Sirianni's doing because he had a heavier hand in the play calling?
I think it played a factor. It was just the reality of the team too, like relying on their biggest strength, which was Jeff Stoutland and him, being a run game coordinator as well, and that offensive line and the running backs they have and Jalen Hurts' mobility. So, it was obviously a culmination of many factors there, but I think that was one of them. Yeah.
The lead story on Bleeding Green Nation this morning, is Sal Powell's sort of interview with Nick Sirianni, where Nick said he sees a big difference in Jalen Hurts. You got 55 minutes, Brandon, of watching Jalen Hurts in 7-on-7. Well, about 20 minutes, let's be honest. He was sharp though, and whatever you can take from 7-on-7s. But do you see a difference, a big positive difference in Jalen Hurts?
I think it's tough to glean too much in terms of like mechanics and all of that. I think that gets a little overstated as well. I don't think that's like a night and day kind of difference. I think it's more subtle. But to your point, John, Jalen Hurts did look really good, I thought, for the most part in practice. And what impressed me wasn't necessarily the deep balls he was connecting on and the flashier plays as much as that one specific rep where I thought he hit Jack Stoll in stride in a tight window over the middle of the field, which is an area that Jalen Hurts is not really utilized. And I kind of think that kind of speaks to a comfort level in the offense. And also on those deep balls, not just if I recall correctly, he was getting those out in decent timing too. He wasn't just holding on to the ball for forever. So I think those are encouraging things. Jalen Hurts has the slowest time to throw each of the last 2 years in the entire NFL. So you want to see him speed up. And, he's talked a lot about getting more comfortable with the offense. I think that's a way you would see that manifest. So between getting the ball out a little bit quicker and then also working the middle of the field, those are two encouraging signs to me.
All right, BLG, we know the relationship between the quarterback and his new highly paid wide receiver. He and A.J. Brown are boys. They work out together during the offseason. They've been pals for a couple of years. And A.J. doing a good job ingratiating himself with the Eagle fan base, saying, we don't have number one wide receiver. We got a 1 and a 1A. We have dueling number one wide receivers here, singing the praises of his running mate on the outside, Mr. Smith. And also doing a little trash talking of the Cowboys at the Eagles charity softball game this week, telling Micah Parsons to get his popcorn ready because the Eagles are coming to town. So he's doing a really good job of getting the Philly fan base behind him. How big a season can A.J. Brown have? Give me the optimistic glass half full. How big a season do you think he can have? Getting it from Jalen Hurts and the Eagles going more pass happy in 2022.
Yeah, that's kind of the question, just how pass happy are they going to be? Because that's obviously going to play a big factor. A.J. Brown still put up really good numbers in a very run-heavy offense in Tennessee, clearly, with Derrick Henry there. And I think that's part of why his stats aren't, more gaudy than they are right now. I think A.J. Brown's going to have a good year, especially in the red zone. I think that's where he's going to make a big difference for this team. And on third down, too, he was a go-to guy for the Titans in those kind of need-to-have-it situations. You look at the 49ers game as a great example. I think he had something like ridiculous, like I don't know if it was like 10 first downs. It was a lot. He had like a lot of first downs in that game and almost like won the game for them in that one. So I think he's going to have a big year, especially, again, in terms of the red zone touchdown numbers. I think that's what you're really looking at with him. But, to his point, I think Devonte Smith's being like a little underrated / overlooked here because I think he's going to have a fantastic jump from year 1 to year 2. He was so underutilized in 2021. There were 38 players who had more targets than him in the NFL, and that just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And we'll see how the split goes here in Philly. But I do think both of those guys are primed for pretty good seasons.
It's one thing Shane Steichen said, BLG, though. There's only one football, and you mentioned his proclivity toward the running game. Then you start talking about, all right, I got to get the $25 million receiver, his touches. Devonte Smith looked phenomenal in the 50 minutes we were out there. The chemistry, even though Jalen Hurts is closer off the field with A.J. Brown, seems to be better on the field with Devonte Smith. Dallas Goedert, tremendous tight end. Kenny Gainwell in the passing game. I think the Eagles see big things there. There's only one football. How do you make everybody happy?
It worked in 2017. It's a little different, but I do think that it might not necessarily be, about the numbers as much as the efficiency in terms of, the yards per play, the touchdowns, things like that. Not as much as having one guy be your Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase and hogging, or Cooper Kupp, and really hogging all of those targets and posting the stats in a big way like that. So, I think don't overthink it. I think if there's a hot hand, go with that. I think there are times where, and Nick Sirianni, it's one of the things I didn't like about what he said last year. And I don't know how much of it he actually believes in, as much as it might have been just coach talk, that he didn't necessarily believe forcing the ball to players. And I just fundamentally disagree on that. If you have a really good player, you need to get him touches. You can't go into a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs on the road and not give Devonte Smith a touch until after the 2-minute warning, which is exactly what they did. Like, that's just not good enough. So I absolutely do think they have to be smart about that. There's always the line, good problem to have. And you can kind of debate if it is a good problem, but I would certainly rather have Devonte Smith, A.J. Brown, Quez Watkins, or Zach Pascal, take your pick, out there than Jalen Reagor being on the field.
All right, BLG, need you to weigh in on the right guard position. And again, because the Eagles are using this time allotted to them the way they are, 7-on-7s, no 11-on-11, you can't really even get a true feeling. You know who goes out there first, lines up first for whatever plays they're going to run in 7-on-7. But that seems to be a position where some people question who the starter is going to be. I don't. I think it's going to be Isaac Seumalo. If he's healthy, he's the guy. Good luck, Jack Driscoll. You're going to be a great backup lineman across the entire line. You're not starting at right guard. Some people think that Driscoll could actually win the job, be given a job, be the choice of the head coach, Nick Sirianni. How do you rate? We had Zach Berman on last week. I asked him to put percentages on it. If you said Isaac, Driscoll, if you want to throw Juergens in there or anybody else, give me percentage breakout, the starting right guard for the Eagles this upcoming season.
Say 50%. 50% Isaac. I will say 49% Driscoll, and then 1%.
You think it's that close?
I think it's close because, like, you don't keep Isaac Seumalo as a backup, right? Like, you're not paying a player, you're not carrying a 7.7 cap number for a guy who is going to be a backup. Like, that's just too much, especially when the Eagles can trade Seumalo and clear $5.65 million in cap space after June 1 now. I don't know that it makes as much sense necessarily, especially in the wake of Nate Herbig being gone. Like, if he was here, I thought it made a lot more sense to move on from Seumalo, considering he's in his age 29 season. He's only played 12 games the past 2 years due to injuries. He's in a contract year. He's going to be a free agent after this year, and I don't know that you really want to extend him coming off these injuries and going into his age, and also investing in Driscoll, who's also had his injury issues, to be fair, and Juergens as well. So I don't know. I don't know how he fits in necessarily. Yes, he might be their best option at right guard. Like, mind you, a position he has not played recently, so that's a whole nother factor in this. And I think it's noteworthy that he is at OTAs currently, where the whole rest of the offensive line really wasn't last week for Brett Toth's wedding, apparently. I don't know exactly who was invited and who wasn't. But
yeah, by the way, how do you feel if you didn't get invited to that, BLG? If you're in the offensive line room, half of the guys are at the wedding and half aren't. What if I feel bad? I didn't get my invite to Brett's wedding.
I'm gonna make a prediction for you, and I know both you guys are bigger Driscoll fans than me, and it's not that I'm not a Driscoll fan, but I'm an Isaac guy. I think he probably was invited, and he said, no, I got to show up at camp. Right. I missed all last year. Yeah. It's kind of important for me to be there. Sorry, Brett, I'll get you a nice gift, but I'm not coming to the wedding. That's what I think happened.
I think you're right, Jody. I think you're right about that.
Now, also with competition, you mentioned an interesting thing about the receivers, because I think you're right. I think people are skipping steps, Brandon, with Quez Watkins a little bit. Not that it can't be the third wide receiver, and I think the odds are he will be. But don't sleep on Zach Pascal with, his history with Nick Sirianni, just his ability. He talks about fundamentals all the time at the wide receiver position. One of the issues with the Eagles, even with Devonte Smith, who's a great route runner for a young player, but some of those details, attention to detail, weren't there on certain routes. Nick explained. Zach Pascal knows what to do. He's very comfortable with them. I think there's an outside chance that he's the third receiver, or at least gets more playing time. Is that a possibility, or am I crazy?
I think it's kind of a, what you want situation. If you're in a situation where you want more of a field stretching presence there in the slot, then I think Quez Watkins, can have that role. Whereas if you're looking for a guy who can probably give you a little bit more in the red zone and maybe some short yardage situations, or if you're, really going with that run heavy attack and you want that extra blocker there for you. So I think it's kind of a mix and match. It's almost kind of what I said before, maybe about like a Jack Stoll and a Grant Calcaterra as your backup tight ends. It's kind of like a 2A and a 2B, where Stoll probably in more for some run blocking and Calcaterra potentially in for some more pass catching. So I think it's kind of just a mix and match situation there. But yeah, I think Pascal's going to have some kind of role in this offense. I don't think it's just as simple as like, well, he's the number 4 guy and he's only going to play if there's an injury or something. Like he's going to be a role player. Yeah.
All right, BLG, I'm going to give your site some love here.
All right.
One of your compatriots and a guy we've had on the show a couple times, John Stolnis, had a good post the other day. I need you to react to it. What could go wrong? I, by nature, am not a pessimist, but I like to think about it from time to time, and John did a good story on it. Listed 5 things that could go wrong that could help be a cause of a sidetrack of the Eagles season. I want you to put them in the order that you actually are concerned about. He could be right here. That could be an issue. The 5 that he mentioned: injuries, which is everybody in the National Football League, but more than the average if you get that kind of season. And the Eagles players have their own injury history that you can factor in. The Giants and Washington being better than we actually think they are before the season starts. Jalen Hurts' growth is stunted. We're all banking on, according to Nick Sirianni, to Sal Paontoni, look great in the 7-on-7. Well, we'll see. The schedule not as easy as maybe some of us have made it out to be. A couple of teams on there better than we thought, and Eagles have tough time against teams that maybe we think they should be a significant favorite against. And the last one, defense not as improved as we think. They made changes. John and I are saying they made upgrades and that the defense is more talented, gave Jonathan Gannon more weapons, but it's got to happen on the field. Of those 5, give me the order that you put them in. Which one do you think is the most legit concern for the Birds this upcoming season?
I think it has to be Hurts doesn't progress. There's been a lot of talk about how he's like gotten better every year. And like, I understand why that is said, but at the same time, I don't think he's like improved leaps and bounds. And even if he has to this point, that doesn't mean it's going to be more improvement this year. At some point, you don't just always get better. Like at some point, you kind of tap out and you are what you are. Maybe you can get better along the margins, but for the most part, the picture is already painted. So I think that's a concern there, obviously. I think next I would probably put the defense, because I would argue that even though the Eagles did some good things defensively last year, hardly all bad, they underperformed their talent level, I would argue. And it's not like they had amazing talent, but I think with what Jonathan Gannon had, I don't think you can argue he got like better or at their level. I think he underperformed the talent level. So I think that's a concern, because even if the Eagles defense improves, it still might not measure up to what it can be. And that's disappointing. And then I'd probably put injuries number 3. Obviously it kind of depends, who's getting hurt. And it's not so much always about like different starters as much as, the clustering of injuries. Like, you're losing like 5 receivers or something. And that's just really, that's where like bad luck factors in. And then like, what can you really do if you're starting 3 receivers get hurt? And then I don't think it's very likely that the Commanders and Giants improve. I might have to put that number 4. I think the Commanders could be, a pain in the Eagles side. Doing my win-loss predictions, I do have the Commanders beating the Eagles once, so I think that's possible. I think they'll kind of be hanging around. Giants are intentionally almost like tanking. They're taking a step back. They're gonna be bad. And then that dead last, the schedule being weak. Like, I'm sorry, like I just don't. I don't know how you look
think Dougie P's going to bring the Jags in here ready to roll week 4.
I don't know how you look at the Eagles schedule and like get to like. You can't at least find like 8 wins, 9 wins there. Like it's not a good schedule. Look at the quarterbacks they're playing. They're not good teams. So yeah.
All right. So it's not a good schedule. I think we all agree with that. Not a difficult schedule.
Right.
It's a very good schedule from the Eagles' perspective. So we talk about, incremental improvement for Jalen Hurts. I'm not even talking about superstar level improvement. The Giants are what we think they are. The Commanders are even a little bit worse than we think they're going to be. Let's turn the slant positive. You mentioned JG there a little bit. I'm a little surprised. I thought most thought he got more out of the talent he had. So you're one of the first I've said he got a little bit less. You've heard Howie Roseman say we're renting Jonathan Gannon. We now know Shane Steichen is calling the plays and other people know it. So if the Eagles win 12, 13 games in a playoff game, who's more likely to lead? Who's more likely to get the head coaching job? Jonathan Gannon or the play calling Shane Steichen, who's getting Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and Devonte Smith to 12 wins?
Maybe it's like the Eagles version of the front office pillaging this.
Maybe both.
Yeah, where
I didn't think both.
They lose both.
Yeah.
It's hard not to go with Gannon just because he's already had the interest and there's a lot of buzz about him. And, who's to say the Texans' job couldn't easily open up after 1 year of Lovie Smith this year and they go with Gannon, or maybe they get Josh McCown finally and they promote him to that spot. But I think there's going to be spots for Gannon. And then, with Steichen, it's an offensive league. Obviously, if the Eagles are in the playoffs and everything, he's going to be a hot name. Some of the Eagles assistants got attention this offseason, right?
Yeah, Brian Johnson,
Kevin Patullo and Brian Johnson. So, and it's not even like they accomplished anything in the postseason. So I definitely think both, they could be in jeopardy of losing both guys.
I got you to respond to your boy Josh Stolnis's contribution on Bleeding Green Nation. Want to use another one of your contemporaries, Eagle Beat guys, and get your take on it. Reuben Frank does a good job, NBC Sports, on his 10 observations, either leading into the weekend or first thing on Monday. He put it up over the weekend this week. The green dot, the guy who gets it on his helmet, who is in charge of giving the situation and the setup on the defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. He speculated that Nakobe Dean, despite being the youngest guy on the entire team, by the time the season gets underway, he could be the guy with the green dot. He could be the guy that the defensive coordinator and the play caller believes is the best to get the information out there and be a little bit of a leader in the defensive huddle. Is that overly optimistic? I'm a big Nakobe Dean fan, and I hope that's the way it plays, but I don't know that I'm ready to go there, that he's going to be the man with the green dot on his helmet. What do you think the chances are of that happening?
So we saw the Eagles' first team linebackers, John and I, on last week, and it was not Nakobe Dean. It was Kaiser White and TJ Edwards. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Davion Taylor is mixing in there too. John,
Davion mixed in, and it was Davion and Christian Ellis as the second team linebackers, and then Nakobe and Jacoby. So I think maybe they like that sort of turn of phrase. Nakobe and Jacoby is the third team linebackers.
So obviously, there's much opportunity and much time left for Nakobe Dean to rise up the depth chart, and it's hardly atypical at this time of year for the coaching staff to be leaning on the vets in these kind of practices and giving them the first crack at it. Doesn't mean it'll stay that way. But yeah, I just think, it's hard to assume always that a rookie is just going to be an instant starter, especially if they're not even taken in the first round, like Nakobe Dean wasn't. I know many people thought he could be, but the reality is he wasn't. So I don't know that I'm just assuming that by any means just yet. I do think he will be playing at the very least. I do think he has the potential to move up the depth chart in a very quick fashion, but we have to see it. Like, I'm not going to just assume it's going to happen. He has to prove himself, just like any young player. Any rookie has to earn the coach's trust. So I think it's a bit much to assume that not only is he going to be trusted to make good plays on the field in action, but also is going to be able to call the defense and get everyone lined up from day one. So I think that might be a little presumptive at this point.
He is Brandon Lee Gowton, at Brandon Gowton on Twitter. You follow him there. You can read him at bleedinggreennation.com. You can listen to him everywhere, including here, but BGN Radio, your co-host of the SB Nation NFL show, all the different podcasts BLG does. So I'll leave you at linebacker since we're talking about it. I think what we're going to see it's sort of a 3-man rotation. That's, if you're playing Tennessee and the Eagles have them on the schedule, Derrick Henry's coming in. It's probably a TJ Edwards game. You want that big physical run stopper in there. If Tampa Bay, if you're in the playoffs and get Tampa Bay again, Tom Brady's going to dump it off to the backs and go over the middle of the field. It's probably a Kaiser White game. You want him out there a lot for pass coverage. But Nakobe's going to play. If I'm going to give you a sort of a Jody question, percentages. TJ Edwards, Nakobe Dean, Kaiser White. Who's playing the most? Who's playing the least?
I think TJ Edwards is playing the most. He came on at the end of last year, and I think
he's the most underrated player on this team. I really do.
I think that's entirely fair. I mean, the Eagles' turnaround, obviously everyone looks at the run game last year, but it was also that week 8 when they played the Lions that TJ Edwards started really to play more, and Eric Wilson was gone at that point. And again, I don't think the defense was amazing last year, but some of the good things they did, TJ Edwards was part of that. So I don't think you're just sending him to the bench in favor of Nakobe Dean, and TJ Edwards is never to be heard from or seen from again. So I would expect him to lead the way going into the season. I think Nakobe has a chance to be second. There's a chance White doesn't make the team. Again, based on the Eagles' history of signing free agent linebackers, just that alone, I do think he will. But I'm just saying, it's not even a guarantee. And if we're talking about likelihood, I think I would go TJ 1, Nakobe second, and then White third, maybe more of a role player.
Either way it shakes out will be interesting. All right, Jody, question to end it, since I'm Jody. I got the Eagles schedule here in front of me. I need a Brandon Lee Gowton prediction.
Mm-hmm.
They played the Green Bay Packers week 12, November 27th. Aaron Rodgers, certainly a draw. Eagles record will be what it is at that time. If after you sign off with us in 3 minutes, you jump on Ticketmaster.com and you buy 2 Eagle tickets for that game at $150 a piece, so a $300 layout, what is Brandon Lee Gowton going to be able to flip them for by the time the game arrives? Week 12, Green Bay, Eagles season going the way it's going. Are you going to sell them again for $300? Are you going to take a hit and lose some money and sell them for $250? Are you going to be able to sell them for $500 and turn the process? Secondary ticket man, Brandon Lee Gowton. What are you getting for your Packers tickets if you pay $150 for them today in week 12?
I was told there'd be no math heading into the show, and I was lied to. This is a good question. Maybe we do. I think it's going to be more. I really do. I think that game's going to have a lot of juice. I think there's a chance that the Packers are still going to be pretty good, but I don't know if they're going to be, another like 13-4, that kind of record season good. You lose Devonte Adams. You take a little bit, you lose Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So I think they take maybe a little bit of and just Aaron Rodgers, like, is he going to be the MVP 3 years in a row? Not impossible. But, again, it's getting older, could take a little bit of a step back. So I think they could be a little bit more mortal here, especially in Philly. Not to say the Eagles are definitely beating them. I would take the Packers to win that game. But I think it'll be an interesting matchup heading into that one. So I'm going to buy the tickets for $300, and I'm going to sell them for $1,000.
Ooh, that's a big. I might do that. I got to get on there.
If your math is good, God bless. You buy me a beer the next time for making you think about doing it. BLG, always a pleasure. We reached out to you late. Thanks for coming through in the clutch for us today. Always appreciate having you on the show. We'll talk again in a couple weeks, big guy.
Sounds good. Take it easy, guys.
Right.